Hey guys, this is Tom Leo signing in. Welcome to another analysis vid here on the Tom Leo YouTube channel. We have finally made it to my favorite Pokemon generation, the one that got me into Pokemon as a whole, the generation that I started watching every single anime episode consecutively, at least until the end of the 6th generation. 4th gen, Diamond and Pearl, super stoked, or at least I would be, until I calculated the results. Not all of these results are bad, but let's just say I'm pretty ticked off at a few of these, and I'll explain why when we get to it. So as always, we'll be looking at every single Pokemon, how many times they've battled, how many times they won, how many times they lost, how many assists they got, how many draws they got. We'll also be calculating their win percentages, and finally we'll be taking all of those stats and combining it into the battle score, which is, I believe, to be the definitive way of determining statistically the best of Ash's Pokemon. And of course, as always, a big shout out to Reddit User Zezin96, who went through the entire Pokemon anime and created a nice detailed list that shows all of these stats so that I don't have to go through it and I'm able to calculate these results super quickly. So big shout out to him. All of his work will be in the description below, so be sure to go check that out. But without further ado, let's get started with Ash's very first Pokemon that he caught in Sinnoh, which was his Staraptor. Staraptor battled 20 different times. Out of those 20 battles, it had 11 wins, 9 losses, 4 assists, and 0 draws, giving it a win percentage of 55%. Not a bad percentage, but also not the greatest either. Compared to all the other previous bird Pokemon that Ash had in his journeys, Staraptor would be the second best of those Pokemon in terms of win percentage. The highest being Swallow with 59.09%. But as always, win percentages aren't always the deciding factor, and hopefully the battle score will make up for that. So in Staraptor's battling career, it never won a single time as a Starly. However, as a Staravia, it won against Gardenia's Cherubi in episode 37, Brock and Holly's Krogunk and Farfetch'd in episode 52, Maylene's Machoke and Metatite in episode 68, and it also won against Taylor's Skarmory and a couple of unnamed trainers, Fearow and Swallow in episode 118, which were Poké-Ringer matches. And as a Staraptor, it won against Paul's Honchkrow in that same episode, which again was a Poké-Ringer match. Candace's Metacham in 127, Paul's Weavile in episode 131, which very impressive win, by the way. Although I think that has more to do with the fact that Staraptor has such a super effective move against Weavile with close combat. And finally, it won against Nando's Roserade in episode 183. As for its losses, its only loss as a Starly was in episode 3, which was against Paul's Starly. As a Staravia, it lost against Gardenia's Turtwig twice in 2 different episodes, the first one being in episode 31 and the second one being in 37. It also lost against Reggie's Swalot in episode 66 and Maylene's Lucario in episode 68. And as a Staraptor, it lost against Candace's Abomasnow in 127, Paul's Ursaring in episode 132, Nando's Armaldo in 183, and Paul's Drapion in 187. To be honest, I was a little surprised at these results because I thought for sure that Staraptor would have a few more victories under its belt considering the amount of different Pokemon it battled against and won against, especially when it evolved into a Staraptor and learned close combat. That's usually the strategy when it comes to having Staraptor, because having a move like close combat for a flying type Pokemon helps helps protect it against its weaknesses like rock and ice, and even go up against steel-type Pokemon. Which, don't get me wrong, Staraptor was able to do that. Like I said before, it won against Paul's Weavile. It didn't really battle against that many other Pokemon of that same nature and type of its weaknesses. So yeah, not horrible, but also not the greatest either. And this is just the first Pokemon. Next up is going to be my boy Torterra.
Torterra, Leaf Storm!
Oh boy, I am not looking forward to explaining these results. Out of all the Pokemon that I've analyzed up until this point, Torterra's results are probably the most disappointing. Torterra battled 21 times. Out of those 21 battles, it had 8 wins, 13 losses, 3 assists, 0 draws. This gives Torterra a win percentage of 38.10%. So, if you guys watched my Pokemon Brilliant Diamond series, you guys know I love Torterra. I think Torterra is such an underappreciated Pokemon. It's got so much going for him. It's got strong defense. Yes, it's quad weak to ice and such, but I figured out a way to counter that, as well as all of its other weaknesses as well. In fact, Torterra was the Pokemon that helped me figure out my battling style. Torterra always held a special place in my heart. Don't get me wrong, Garchomp is my all-time favorite Pokemon that has ever existed. But Torterra really means something to me. And to see this low of stats, it just... boy, does it really piss me off. The writers did Torterra dirty in more ways than one. Most of its wins came when it was a Turtwig. And those wins were Rourke's Cranidos in episode 16, and then Rourke's Rampardos in episode 18, Ryan and Brian's Croconaw and Quilava in episode 29, Gardenia's Turtwig in episode 35, and unnamed trainers Metagross and Zangoose in episode 51, Reggie's B-Barrel in episode 66, which I'll admit is not that impressive of a win. It's a B-Barrel, and Turtwig's a grass type, which already gives it the advantage. And it also won against Francesca's Chingling in episode 70. When it was a Grotle, it only had 1 win. A very impressive win, but still only 1 win. And that was against Candace's Sneasel in episode 127. And then after that, it never won a single battle. Not even as a Torterra. I'm telling you, they did Torterra dirty. Look, I understand that, like, Infernape is the most popular of the starters, and they really wanted to capitalize on that particular Pokemon. I get that, I understand that, but I'm just saying, the writers really f***ed up my boy, and I'm not happy about that. At all. Anyway, as for its losses, as a Turtwig, it lost against Paul's Chimchar in episode 6, Rourke's Onix in episode 16. It lost against Gardenia's Turtwig in their first fight in episode 31, lost against Dawn's Weasel in episode 35, and lost against Gardenia's Roserade in episode 37. As a Grotle, it lost against Paul's Honchkrow twice. First time was in episode 100, and the second time was in 131. It also lost against Candace's Abomasnow in 127, and Palmer's Rhyperior in episode 141. And finally, as a Torterra, it lost 3 times. It lost against Bertha's Hippowdon in episode 170, Volkner's Electivire in 179, and Paul's Drapion in 187. Words cannot express how annoyed I am that this sort of thing happened. Like, its shining moment was only when it was a Turtwig. And that's the thing that kind of even pisses me off even more, that it does better as a Turtwig than it did in its evolved forms. They made this huge deal about Turtwig being a badass in the beginning of the series, and everyone wanted, or at least I did anyway, wanted this Pokemon to evolve to continue its badassery. But when it finally did evolve, it was just a huge disappointment. The writers did my boy dirty, and I'm not happy about that. Anyway, I should probably move on to the next Pokemon before I go off on a huge rant. So let's talk about Infernape's stats, shall we?
Flare Blitz, go!
Infernape battled 25 different Pokemon. Out of those 25 different Pokemon, it had 17 wins, 7 losses, 1 assist, and 1 draw, giving it a win percentage of 68%. So I think it comes as no surprise that Infernape has such amazing stats, again, due to its popularity. Generally speaking, fire-type Pokemon starters are the most popular Pokemon. I mean, I do understand why, but I still think there are a lot of underappreciated starters that a lot of people really should start thinking about instead of just going for the obvious fire-type thing. And there I go on a rant again. Okay, calm down. Calm your inner zen, Tom. Just calm your inner zen. So, as a Chimchar, it won against Dawn and Conway's Weasel and Heracross in episode 52, Paul's Ursaring in episode 81, Barry's Staraptor in 101, Fantina's Mismagius and Driftblim in 102, Brian's Bronzor and Steelix in episode 108, Candace's Snover and Abomasnow in episode 127. I'm starting to see a pattern here. And Paul's Ursaring again in episode 132. And then when it evolved into a Monferno, its only win was against Lyra and Corey's Chikorita and Croconaw. But as an Infernape, it gained a lot more wins under its belt, including Narissa's Ditto in 173, Volkner's Jolteon and Luxray in episode 179. There's the pattern again. It also won against Paul's Aggron, Ninjask, and Electivire in episode 186, 187, and 188, respectively. Which, those are some pretty impressive victories right there. And that final battle with Ash and Paul, I think we can all agree was like probably one of, if not the best rival battles ever. Just so good. And Infernape really did put in the work. But of course, that's not to say it didn't have its fair share of losses. In fact, as a Chimchar, it lost against Dawn's Piplup in episode 53, Maylene's Lucario in episode 68, Fantina's Drifloon in episode 93, Barry's Roserade in episode 101. Jeez, that is really embarrassing. Byron's Bastiodon in episode 108. And that's it. I thought there was more, but I misread the list here. As a Monferno, its only loss was against Paul's Electabuzz in 132. And as an Infernape, its only loss was against Flint's Infernape in episode 165. And its only draw was as a Chimchar in episode 63, where it battled Dawn and Leona's Piplup and Swinub. Obviously, this comes as no surprise that more wins, less losses equals better results. I don't hate Infernape. In fact, Infernape's story in the Diamond and Pearl series is actually probably the biggest selling point in the Diamond and Pearl series, because this was a Pokemon that one of Ash's rivals Pokemon. It was Paul's Pokemon in the beginning of the series, and it had such a tragic backstory, and the mistreatments that Paul was giving to Chimchar when it was a Chimchar, there's a lot of intense emotion there. And when Paul decided to abandon him as a Chimchar, and then Ash decided to take him in, it truly was a really nice moment, and Infernape is so much better off for it. It finally got to shine as the powerhouse that Paul had been striving for, but could never get because of his cruel nature. I definitely think Infernape definitely deserves these stats, but that still doesn't excuse the writers for doing my boy Torterra dirty. But in any case, let's move on to the next Pokemon, which is Weasel.
Now use Ice Punch!
Weasel had battled a total of 16 times. Out of those 16 times, it had 6 wins, 9 losses, 4 assists, 1 draw, giving it a win percentage of 37.50. So Weasel was always an interesting Pokemon throughout the Diamond and Pearl series. This was the Pokemon that was originally Dawn's Pokemon, which was kind of a weird thing to happen in the anime because Weasel was definitely more of a fighter than a contest performer. But as we all know, that seems to have been the plan from the beginning because Ash had Apom, which was more interested in contest battles than gym battles and such. So naturally made the trade, and it worked out so well for both of these trainers. Well, maybe not so much for Dawn, because Ambipom eventually decided to leave to do ping pong, which I'm not getting into that one. I already ranted how stupid that was in the previous analysis vid. But I was honestly surprised that Weasel had these kinds of stats. I thought for sure that Weasel did a lot more. But apparently, its 6 wins include fighting an unnamed trainer's Kecleon in a contest battle in episode 78, Wake's Quagsire and Floatzel in episode 83, Fantina's Gengar in episode 102, Clayton's Mr. Mime in episode 159, and Paul's Gastrodon in episode 186. Its losses include Kyle's Lantern, which was a contest battle in episode 78, Fantina's Drifloon in episode 179, then it lost against her Drifblim in episode 102, and then losing against Byron's Steelix in 108, Paul's Ursaring in 132, Clayton's Mr. Mime in their first fight in 159, Flint's Infernape in 165, Kenny's Empoleon in episode 180, and Paul's Drapion in episode 173. And its only draw was against Maylene's Lucario in episode 63, which was a really cool fight. Lucario, Weasel, that truly was probably one of the high points of the Diamond and Pearl series for sure. So yeah, Weasel was always the one that took fighting really seriously, and it was just a bit of a surprise to see it have these low stats. Although interestingly enough, the 4 assists that Weasel got throughout its journey, all of them were Pokemon that Weasel helped Infernape take down. Well, most of them anyway. I think 3 of those assists helped Infernape take those Pokemon down. Which, I don't know, I thought that was pretty interesting. Like, Weasel was the major assist player for Infernape, so I guess you could say part of Infernape's badassery, you can credit some of it to Weasel. Unfortunately, it didn't help with its win percentage, so that's a bit unfortunate for you, bro. So our second to last Pokemon is going to be probably the most interesting Pokemon in Ash's Sinnoh team, which was Gliscor.
Now Steel Wing!
Gliscor! Gliscor!
Gliscor, which was kind of the opposite to Weasel, was never really much of a fighter to begin with. He just really liked being around Ash and doing whatever he said. And his journey to overcome his fear of battling is quite a touching one. Unfortunately, the stats do not show the growth of Gliscor throughout the series. In fact, it only battled 9 times. Out of those 9 battles, it had 2 wins, 6 losses, 2 assists, and 1 draw, giving it a win percentage of 22.2%. It didn't do that many battling as a Gligar. In fact, it only battled 1 time, and it was a loss against Paul's Gliscor in episode 81. As a Gliscor, however, its 2 victories are against Byron's Bastiodon in episode 108 and Paul's Drapion in episode 188, which in my mind are probably some major victories for Gliscor. Like, those two Pokemon were probably some of the most difficult Pokemon that Ash fought in his Sinnoh journeys. Like, I just remember the full battle between Paul and Ash in the Sinnoh League, and Paul's Drapion was KOing so many different Pokemon. And to have Gliscor be the one to take him down, I really feel like it helped Gliscor's character so much. Unfortunately, though, its losses outweigh its wins. And these losses as a Gliscor include Candace's Snover in episode 127, which isn't really all that surprising, to be honest. Paul's Torterra in episode 132. At least somebody's Torterra has been getting wins. It also lost against McCain's Scizor twice in episode 154, and Paul's Electivire in episode 187. Its only draw was against Barry's Roserade in episode 101. Yeah, I was kind of hoping that Gliscor, after it evolved from a Gligar, it would be able to put in a little more work and show off a little more fighting potential that its story would suggest that it had. Because again, it started off as a coward as a Gligar, but when it evolved into a Gliscor, it gained a lot more confidence. Unfortunately, Gliscor, this is what you're stuck with. And finally, the last Pokemon from Ash's Sinnoh journey, good old Gibbel.
Shoot out Shuckle using Draco Meteor! It works, Gibbel, you're the best!
Gibbel, being a latecomer to the Sinnoh journeys, only had battled 4 times. Out of those 4 battles, it had 2 wins, 2 losses, 1 assist, and 0 draws, giving it a 50% win ratio. Honestly, it's kind of funny. 3 of the previous Pokemon couldn't break 50%. And in comes this Pokemon. You guys know Garchomp is my favorite Pokemon ever. And it was pretty cool that Ash was able to catch himself a Gibbel and maybe later down the line get his own Garchomp. That would be pretty sick someday. This Gibbel was like really special. It was such a strange Pokemon that seemed like a very indecisive Pokemon. It couldn't really decide what it really wanted to do until it met Ash. But again, being such a latecomer, it didn't do that much battling, which kind of makes me wonder how much better it could have been if it came like a little early. It's a theory for someone else to do. I just found it interesting that out of all the Pokemon in Ash's Sinnoh team, in terms of win percentages, Gibbel makes the top 3. That's just surprising to me. In fact, let's take a look at the win percentages of all the Pokemon and determine who statistically was the best Pokemon in terms of win percentage. Starting at the very top, we have Infernape with a win percentage of 68%. Then we had Staraptor with a win percentage of 55%, and then Gibbel with a 50% win ratio. Then we had Torterra in 4th with a 38.10% win ratio. Weasel coming in second to last with a win percentage of 37.50%, and Gliscor at the very bottom with a win percentage of 22.22%. So obviously you could see there's quite a bit of favoritism for certain Pokemon. Infernape, Staraptor being the highest, Gibbel also being the 3rd highest, and I can't help but wonder if that has to do with the fact that it's Gibbel's part of the Garchomp line and everyone really likes Garchomp, so that's why it's probably got this high of a percentage and everyone else is just like left in the dust. But again, that's just win percentages. Now we're going to calculate all of their statistics and put them together to create a battle score and statistically determine who of Ash's Sinnoh Pokemon is the best. So the way this battle score works is a win would be worth 1 point, a loss would be worth -1 point, and an assist and a draw is worth ½ point. So starting at the very bottom, much to my dismay, is Torterra with a battle score of -3.5. You didn't hear that wrong. As of this video, Torterra officially has the worst battle score out of all the Pokemon that Ash had ever acquired throughout his journey. The previous Pokemon with the worst battle score was Pidgeot with negative 0.5. The writers did Torterra dirty, and I'm not happy about this. Second to last, with a battle score of negative 2.5, is Gliscor. Fourth place goes to Weasel with a battle score of negative 0.5. Cracking the top 3 is Gibbel with a battle score of 0.5. Staraptor takes the silver medal with a battle score of 4. And Infernape gets gold with a battle score of 11. Yeah, Infernape just wrecked house, both in terms of win percentage and battle score. In fact, looking back at the other battle scores for the previous Pokemon in the previous videos, it is currently the second best Pokemon in terms of the battle score. Number 1 currently is still Charizard with a battle score of 11.5. If Infernape had like one more win, it might have been able to overtake Charizard. But unfortunately, Charizard still reigns supreme as statistically the best Pokemon so far. But second place is not bad for Infernape. And again, rightfully so, Infernape did a lot. Infernape definitely put in a lot of work, and I can appreciate Infernape for what he is and the story that they told throughout it. But I'm still not happy with what the writers did to Torterra. Like, negative 3.5? Like, ugh. Like, I swear, I can't deal with this stupid score. And they just, like, how they gave Torterra such an amazing start, but then they just decided to just cast him aside, and I just really pissed off, and I really should not be getting so serious about this, because at the end of the day, this video is just made for fun. And regardless of which you guys think is the definitive way of determining which Pokemon is the best, win percentage or battle score, it's completely up to you. It shouldn't really negate the speciality of every single Pokemon that put in the work in their own special way, no matter which Pokemon the writers favor over the other. Anyway, that's going to do it for this analysis vid. Let me know in the comments below what other things you would like me to analyze. But until then, I am Tom Leo. You've been amazingly fantabulous people, and I am signing off. Thank you guys for watching. I will catch you in the next vid. Peace!